guys, it's Gretchen and welcome back to my channel. So with social distancing going on and all of us needing to stay at home and quarantine ourselves and making sure that we're not in groups of 10 or more, some of us are itching for a new piercing. So we may be taking this time to think about, what piercing can I get when this is all said and done? Or is that just me? Because believe me, I have a list. But for today's video, I thought I would go through my own piercings and kind of highlight the top 5 most painful ones for me. Now, keep in mind, I have a pretty high pain tolerance, so some of these ratings may be a little off. Also, everyone deals with pain differently, everyone experiences pain differently, so what may have been painful for me may not be for someone else, and vice versa. I'm gonna start with my 5th most painful and then work my way up to the most painful. I also have another video where I talk about all the pain levels of my piercings, but it is a little out of date because not all of my piercings are included, so I will do an update at some point. So, my top 5 most painful piercings. In the 5th spot, we have my left tragus, which was my first one done. I have both traguses done. My left one was more painful than my right one. Don't know why, just was. So for me, my tragus, my left tragus in this case, was roughly a 6 out of 10. And the main reason for that is because, if you notice, it's kind of hard to notice, but my tragus, I'll have a picture over here of a close-up of my tragus. But my tragus is a lot smaller than the average person's. If you look at your own tragus, you most likely have a pretty decent sized surface space for you to actually get a piercing through. Mine is pretty small. Luckily, still pierceable. Pierceable? Is that a word? We're making it one. So mine is less pierceable than others, but still able to be pierced, if that makes sense. So for me, the reason why I would rank it a 6 out of 10 was just because it's a very small space for me, and it took a little bit more finagling. So you had to like get really in there to make sure that the backside was stable so that a needle could go through, and it was just a whole lot more effort to get it pierced, which is pretty much the main reason why it hurt. My 4th and 3rd most painful piercings are kind of tied because they have similar reasonings, so I'll just go in the order of which one came to mind first. So my 4th one is my rook over here, and the main reason why it hurt was just because, again, a tighter space. It wasn't so much that it hurt as it was just uncomfortable to get done. It's also a thick piece of cartilage if you think about it. The rook actually is pretty thick, so that needle had to go through a lot in order to be pierced. So for me, I don't like to say that these really hurt for me. Yes, a needle is going through me at some point. It's gonna hurt. So for anyone saying, does it hurt? Yeah, all of them have hurt in some capacity, some just more so than others. So for my rook, it is a thicker piece and it's also in a weird spot. You do have like the forward helix that covers it a little bit. So again, a little bit more finagling, a little thicker piece, and that's the main reason why the rook hurt. Also tied for the spot, but I'll say that it's my 3rd most painful, was my daith or dath, as I lovingly love to call it because that's its actual pronunciation. So for my daith, again, tight space, little bit more in there, not as thick, I don't feel like. I mean, it's still a thick piece, but I don't feel like it's as thick as the rook. However, because it did require to go up in there a little bit more than the rook, I would say that's why it's a little bit more, but it's still a 6 out of 10, much like my rook. My tragus is also a 6 out of 10, though I kind of cluster the rook and the daith together just because they have similar reasoning of being a tight space and a little bit further into the ear. My 2nd most painful piercing is my double helix over here, and I would rank that a 7 out of 10. Now, the main reason why I'm saying that this, to me, is one piercing, even though it's obviously 2, but I got them done at the same time. I got them done back to back, and so that's the main reason why I give it a 7 out of 10 is because I did get bam bam. Not only are they close in proximity, but I got them closely done in time. One was done, and then immediately after, the second one was done. When I count my piercings out, I do go 1, 2, but when I talk about the double helix, it's just one conglomerate. So for me, the main reason why it hurt, a helix on its own, not that painful, but because they were done wham bam and they're right next to each other, that's why I rank it a little bit higher. And as for my top spot for my most painful piercing, I would say my septum. Now, the piercing itself probably wouldn't have hurt unless it was for two reasons. One, my sweet spot, which is the spot that you want to get pierced when you get a septum piercing, not your cartilage, is a little bit smaller than the normal person's. I don't know what it is about my anatomy, but for some reason, all of my piercing spaces are smaller than average. So according to the piercer, when they were searching for my sweet spot, they're like, you have one, it's just a smaller space than people normally have. Go me. So when the piercing was actually done, the needle ended up getting stuck at one point. Not so much that it was like pierced wrong, it was just kind of like there was a little resistance, even though it was in the sweet spot, there was a little resistance when it went through, and so it was like pop, and then all of a sudden it was just like, uh-oh, that didn't go through smoothly as it should have, and then just a little bit more. I also did bleed. That was the main reason why the septum hurt. I don't think it would have hurt otherwise, or at least not as bad, but because it did get a little stuck, because my sweet spot is smaller and has a little less wiggle room to like get it done, I would say that's why it hurt. And keep in mind, the pain, when I say that, you know, my tragus, my rook, my daith were a 6 out of 10, my double helix was a 7 out of 10, my septum was an 8 out of 10. Keep in mind, that's a very brief amount of time that pain occurs. It's just like, oh God, and then it's gone. Honestly, the worst part of any piercing is the healing afterwards, because that is a little bit longer than just the initial. I still build it up in my head when I go to get a piercing. I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna hurt so bad, but it's for a split second. It doesn't last. So for me, these were my top 5 most painful piercings. I do feel like maybe these would have hurt less if there were certain situations, circumstances that were different, like if my tragus was bigger or if my septum had a bigger sweet spot, maybe they would have been less painful. Don't really know. But these are just what I consider my most painful ones, because I do get asked that a lot, you know, what was my most painful one? These are what I consider my most painful. Let me know in the comments below what you feel like your most painful one was. I'm interested, mostly because I'm interested to see if anyone says any piercings that I want in the future, and I want to see what people's rankings are on those. I will most likely also be doing a least painful one, so keep your eye out for that. But again, as we sit here in isolation pretty much, and are left to ponder our thoughts of, what piercing will I get when I get out? Because believe me, I'm already considering at least 2. Not as soon as I get out, but like at least one of them will be the day I get out. And everyone else can go back to living a normal life. Also let me know how, if you have these piercings that I mentioned, how they were for you. Maybe, like I said, everyone's body's different, so maybe yours was less painful than I did, or even more so, like maybe you got your rook done and you thought it was a 10 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10. Let us know in the comments below. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big ol' thumbs up. Go on down there and hit that subscribe button, wherever it may be. 'Cause I don't know, even though I do, this is just my shtick now. Also hit that notification bell in case you want to know when I upload, and in case YouTube wants to let you know when I upload, because I would really appreciate it. And until next time, bye guys.